listening to the New Music Podcast. I'm Jennifer Torrence, and what you're hearing now is the work Six Moving Guitars by Fredrik Rasten, which we'll be showing on our spring program. In this episode, I'll be talking with Fredrik and getting a behind-the-scenes look on this piece and other aspects of his music. And to start, I asked Fredrik to trace some red threads that drive his work.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's a question that I think I return to myself. Often I don't think about it that clearly, so it's good to be challenged on that. I think sometimes I take these kind of questions as a kind of for granted in an intuitive way. I just follow my heart. No, but it's a good question, and I think a kind of being with sound is kind of, I don't know what. That's that's some words that I think is very important in my work, and that kind of relates to this elongated music that is. It's quite many people working with this kind of immersive sound world these days, and I think that's really nice and interesting, and there's very many entrance points to what that is and what's interesting about it. And for me, this kind of being with sound and being with elongated sound is something I've been interested in at least for the last 10 years, also before I got interested in tuning and just intonation. But then more in an improvised manner, working with trying to kind of adapt the guitar into ways of singing, or like making long notes with bows and different adaptations and open tunings and these things. And especially in this duo with my good friend Torrence, the duo Peep, which we have had since 2006 when we were teenagers, and in that band we have worked very much with beating and interference and this kind of intense physical experiences of sound, and in a very open way where we just kind of follow what we hear and follow the acoustics in the room, and already being situated in that praxis and that way of thinking about sound, this just intonation came very naturally for me when I got into that through hearing Catherine Lamb's music at Only Connect in 2016, I think, and then I had already been interested in similar kinds of music for a little bit. This kind of more reduced and tonal music that one can associate with both, like the British and other timbre label and the Wandelweiser collective and these kind of things. And that the whole thing of combining a kind of open and collective, we will come back to that word, but a way of making music where performer and composers are more on the same level. There's like where the roles are more erased and where one can make pieces in a way that is a more simple entrance to composition, where you don't feel you have to have studied it for a long time, or with more you work with sound directly and you work with situations, with people, and these kind of things. And these kind of things are very important in my musical life, to collaborate but also to compose individually, but to compose situations where one can, where the performers also can be invested. That's a word from the economical world, which I'm not so. But you know what I mean. In Norwegian, it sounds better to be investert. That means more you're involved in a personal way, in the way you shape the music.
There were two things that you said that are very poetic and beg a follow-up question. And the first was, of course, what you unfolded, which you describe as being with sound. And I wonder if you can say more about what you mean by this. I understand that you use just intonation, microtonality as a way of noticing the behavior of sound, of understanding sound even as a tactile surface you've described in other places. And then there's obviously this struggle with your instrument, the guitar, to elongate its sounds from a plucked sound into something that could move towards this surface-based music that you've been making lately, especially using EBOs. So my question is, can you say more about this being with sound? What do you mean?
Yeah, I don't know if that's probably a broad term that very many people are using. I feel it's very closely related to, for instance, Pauline Oliveros and her sound meditations and these ways of thinking about sound making, music. And it's also this kind of, I'm not sure if, it's probably also, or it's definitely not an idea originating with me as well, but this idea of the music or the sound being a being, kind of being something that you work together with, like, that it's something that is so detailed and has so many facets, and it's surrounding you in a room when you're making it or listening to it. So it has if you really focus on the sensibilities that you can put into the details of molding that sound, which is then often elongated or at least has a kind of long-lasting element, then it will react kind of like another being, it will react to all your small adjustments. So it's like, being with a person or a being, I think. And that has, of course, very many philosophical kind of, consequences, which one can go more into. But I haven't thought more about it in a philosophical way. I mean, some people like to think about the objects and the nature as beings, and I think that's really beautiful thoughts. But just to mention that it has a kind of broader perspective, this way of thinking, I guess.
The other thing that you said that I would love to hear more about is composing situations. Can you describe some situations that you have composed, or maybe even sketches of situations where you are looking at how can a group of people, a collective of people, be with sound? With reference to my own work. Yes, please, or other people's work, as you like.
Yeah, I mean, to start with other people's work, I think one of the most interesting, or one thing that I find really inspiring, is Antoine Beuger's work. He's one of the founding Wandelweiser composers, and in conversation with him, he has talked about this thing that he's not that interested in sound itself, which is very different from me. I'm very interested in sound itself, but he is very interested in making social situations, making relations between people, and that's the focus. So, and I found the way he talks about that and the way his scores are communicating that very nice, very beautiful, and that has definitely that has definitely had an impact on my way of composing. And but I feel there is a kind of sometimes a paradox, because sometimes I often want very specific sounds especially harmonically speaking. So it's not often that much openness or flexibility in terms of the harmonic unfolding, although sometimes it is, but it's more about the shaping of whatever the harmony is, to talk in musical terms, the dynamics, the durations, the intensity, the way you shape a tone. These kind of things are very often open in my more composed pieces, which I see more as sonic structures so far, in a way, harmonic structures. But I mean, the Six Moving Guitars piece is very much maybe in a more concrete way dealing with collectivity, I think, and that has not so much to do with the flexibility of what to play. It's not about improvisation, really. It's the material is quite set, but the tasks that the performers are doing, I think, really calls for and needs an awareness of each other in a way which, yeah, I don't know if it's unique or like it's not unique, but I don't know. I mean, all music in ensembles have this element of relating to each other. So in a way, it's very widespread. Music is collective by its very nature, one can say. I mean, it's solitary as well. It's individual and collective at the same time.
Maybe I can ask a really concrete question, and that's before we go into what this work brings up philosophically or socially, maybe you can just describe the piece.
Yeah, so Six Moving Guitars is a piece for 6 performers. I'm always, at least so far, taking part as one of the performers. It came out of a very non-hierarchical situation with 3 dancers and 3 musicians. The dancers was Mathilde Øverland, Marie Bergby Handeland, and Katarina Vere Gresslien. And the musicians were myself, Hans Tjorstad, and Erlend Albertsen. So we had a project which had that, and now we're talking many years back, like it started in 2015 or something, the seed of this project. And then we were supposed to make, or we had a planned performance in Kanonhallen in 2018, in the autumn 2018. And as a part of that process, Six Moving Guitars came out of it, because we were just doing so many different things, working with collaboration and improvisation, and we were agreeing on one term, and that was sound, what we call it, sound choreography of sound. That it should be choreography, but it should be mostly with the focus on the sound, the sonic qualities of movement. So that's not only my own kind of idea which resulted in Six Moving Guitars. It started from this collective working, and we produced. And then at some point I did some movements. I did this swinging around with the guitar while strumming a chord, which makes a kind of chorus effect because of the swirling around. And then we found out, maybe we can work with 6 guitars. And then we had a time limit, so it was very pragmatically. I went home and started to compose for this, to make something with that point of departure. And then Six Moving Guitars was very effectively kind of composed during a few days of me having 6 acoustic guitars at home and tuning them in different ways. And yes, and then we tried out this, and we liked it, but it didn't become the thing we did together then, because it was too much about my ideas. So we made this other project called 50 Meter, where part of Six Moving Guitars is included, but it was way more eclectic in a very playful way. We did many different things dealing with sound choreography.
Six Moving Guitars is an album released on Sofa that I have personally heard. I can't even count how many times. It's just like a go-to record in our house. And part of it the things we love about it, of course, are the chords are beautiful. The sound of the performers moving is gorgeous. The repetition is also something I would love to ask you about. I guess there are 2 things I'm wondering. One is about when I read this work, and I know that there are dancers and musicians who also don't play guitar. You're the only guitarist in the group. I wonder what this means for you, because for me it's such a challenge to expertise, or it's a challenge to the idea of virtuosity as a mode towards beauty. So I wonder first what you think about this idea of expertise, and in what ways this Six Moving Guitars composition is playing with it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And also thank you so much for your kind words about the piece. That's very nice to hear. What to say? Yeah, I mean, I've been interested in this kind of anti-virtuosity in a way, or like not anti, but kind of going against the idea of virtuosity as quality in itself. for a long time. But and in Six Moving Guitars, it had this. I think all of us, as I mentioned, all of the people involved in that project, which led to both Six Moving Guitars and this other project, 50-meteren, we were all kind of on the same page, that we were working a little against this virtuosity idea, and that came out of that we were 3 dancers, 3 musicians, but we would do the same thing. We wanted it to be kind of indistinguishable for the audience, whose expertise was what, even though I guess some of the things was evident from our way of moving, etc. But so it had this pragmatic starting point also, that we were working with that as a theme.
I'm also curious about what you described as a non-hierarchical situation for making work, and you said that this was a starting point for this collective work with the dancers and musicians, but that then when you got into your Six Moving Guitar material, you realized you wanted more control because it was your work. I'm still wondering, how did you make this piece in the room? Because obviously the dancers are bringing a certain spatial awareness physically, and musicians are bringing a certain acoustic awareness in terms of space. How did you work together on this?
That's many interesting questions. And to pick up on what you said first about hierarchy, non-hierarchy, is that, I mean, I'm not totally rid of hierarchy in presenting a work that is under my name. You know, it's definitely, it has different roles there. So it's not, I will be honest there and say that it's not 100% collective in that sense, you know, but it is kind of, but it came from a collective vision, and then, or an idea at starting point, and then I think it's nice that this collective idea can then have different arms, different pathways that can also be individualistic or individual ideas taking shape. And yeah, the way we worked as musicians and dancers is that was very interesting, because one gets to know each other personally and also as dancers and musicians, and how different people and different professions, so to speak, think in their work. I mean, in their field. And I guess we had something to learn, like the dancers had something to learn from the musicians in terms of producing a full sound, and the musicians had something to learn from the dancers in terms of spatial awareness, all these things about body language, facial, like everything that has to do with how one appears, you know. But I mean, still, Six Moving Guitars is kind of a, what to say, like a frugal, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's kind of down to earth. We're not really, it's very much just 6 people focusing on making this sound and listening to each other, looking at each other, but in a very kind of, unadorned way.
When you describe the work, it's in the score, and it's also in some descriptions of the album, Six Moving Guitars. You say, in addition to this sonic and choreographic unity that the piece is striving for. It also is a piece that can be seen as a study in how people, without necessarily being trained musicians, can act together in a musical situation based on awareness of listening and spatial orientation. Now, this rings true to everything you've said so far today. I'm just curious about what is behind this wish to get people in general to go into these kinds of activities, musical situations.
That's a very good question for me to really try to explicate these ideas, because I would love the piece to be played by lots of non-musicians, to be kind of seen as an activity or as a kind of team, not team sport, because I mean there's some running in there, but it's not like a collective activity. And I think I like the idea that there's a discrepancy between the kind of the narrowness of the tuning field. That I mean, I think it's an important part of the piece that it is tuned in just intonation and harmony, which is it's something that most people don't know anything about, at least on a kind of theoretical level. But I like that, yeah, given these kind of harmonies can just be in a very kind of easygoing way produced, then anyone can just take part in this. There's some basic kind of plucking patterns, and you have to listen to each other, and the music is organized in 3 duos, so it's always another duo partner that you communicate more concretely with. Yeah, I would love the piece to be also just an activity that people can, kind of like chamber music, like people just not necessarily having this performance as the only outcome. So I guess I'm interested in social elements of music in that sense.
You mentioned that there are these patterns that the duos are playing, and repetition, I would say, is a very clear musical element or strategy in the work. I wondered how you think through repetition.
That's a very elemental question, which is very important I think. And I guess the music has a lineage to, more across the Atlantic Ocean to a kind of minimalist aesthetic, which of course not only originates in the USA, but has a strong kind of tradition there, more than the kind of post-war classical music lineage of European music. And I guess that repetition is, of course, way more than that. It's also very strong in folk musics all over the world, repetitive elements. And it comes back to this being with sound, I guess, that it's either if it's repeated cells or if it is elongated kind of non-rhythmical music, it's about this kind of dissolution or dissolving of dramaturgy as a kind of literary process, which has more to do maybe with narrative, with language and storytelling, and more about just situating yourself in an ecology or in a space that has so many things to explore as a listener and as a performer, and go the ways you want, So I guess that's my main interest in repetition and temporally elongated sound.
Then I get to ask the next nitty-gritty, and that has to do with your personal relationship to just intonation and microtonality, and what is exactly that you feel you're researching in this area?
For me, I think just intonation is just one of many ways of exploring details of sound, and I think subtle details of sound is what I'm mainly interested in, and subtle details that really diving into something and like really sharpening your senses to something specific. And just intonation is just a way of organizing pitch, and also things that are not just, but just a way of opening the pitch continuum in a way where you hear what's happening when pitches glide, for instance, or are placed in different ways, creating beating patterns or whatever it is some kind of the overarching interest for me. like in Alvin Lucier's work with piano and sine waves, these things were really ear-opening for me. The way, how can the piano sound like this? You're so used to the piano sounding like equal temperament, and then suddenly the relation between ensemble or sine tones make it really sound like, I don't know, liquid or something. So that's the main interest. And then just intonation in itself is, you can go as deep as you want into in different ways and categorizing it in different ways. But the main thing is the detail, how sound can be elicit detail.
Six Moving Guitars is a relatively old piece. It's from 2018, and now we're soon 2024. I would love to hear what your current obsessions are as a composer and improviser. I know you just released an album. Maybe you can tell us a bit about trajectory since Six Moving Guitars, what's happened, and then also where are you headed for your next projects?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say something about just intonation, also that I'm interested in, which is also partly answering this question, but it's also about the collectivity of tuning together in an ensemble praxis. That one is shaping the music together with all these small adjustments. That's really a collective quality of just intonation that I find very interesting. That one can focus on detail of sound together and try to focus on the same, or on, not like you have to listen to the same things, but find ways of molding the sound and talking about it and making connections, like between human beings. And what I'm interested in or doing, I released Lineaments, this solo album, in June, and just intonation has led me to this praxis of playing many guitars at the same time, because I tune them in open chords, and that makes it, then I don't need to fret the notes to make music, but I can just think of it more as a big open string thing, like a harp or something. And on this Lineaments album I play a lot of guitars simultaneously and use EBOs to activate. It's like a little guitar one-man band, also with voice. I mean, also using my voice has been something I've been exploring more, first as a pedagogic kind of self-study thing to get into tuning, and now also getting slowly a little more confident to use my voice in my music. More as kind of blending in the guitar, so like it's a little bit concealed in the guitar sound, but I think it's a continuation of the guitar, so to speak. I'm not writing songs with words really at this point. However, the last year I've been really interested in folk music and more in kind of Scottish ballads and these things, and I have a new kind of collaboration with Alistair Roberts, who's been a hero for me. He's a Scottish songwriter and folk singer. So we have recorded some music, two long ballads that we hope to release in the world. So I think it's something about also the rhythmic or the short repetitive elements of these verses that and these beautiful melodies that one can create in that realm that really inspires me as well. And where just intonation, and because it's often just a few, or like often quite drony, and the tuning really finds for me its place in that music too.